The monad is the invisible substance that sustains all form, and he who finds it in the silence of his own being ceases to be a creature of circumstances and becomes the master of his own light. I imagine possessing the code to switch on the perception of your true self in just 5 minutes. The Hermetic wisdom of Thoth has left us clues about a light technology that goes far beyond conventional rituals, the monad protocol. We are often led to believe that awakening is a path of pain and delay, when in fact the ancient masters demonstrated that it is all a matter of vibrational precision and technical alignment. Today, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide to this ancient synchronization practice. We'll understand how this protocol works on your internal frequency, allowing you to directly regain your clarity and spiritual authority. When you access the monad, empty worries lose their power and your reality begins to reflect your true essence. It's time to stop being a passenger of reality and become its master. Look at your current moment. What is the mental noise you most want to silence today to find clarity? Share your reflection below in your own words. Your honesty is what opens this portal. The event that history tried to hide from you. The history of Western spirituality rests on pillars of events that have been systematically stripped of their technical function over many centuries. What most people know today as the Transfiguration of Jesus atop Mount Tabor is certainly the most vivid and shocking example of this historical manipulation. According to official church accounts, Jesus took 3 disciples to a solitary mountain to perform a purely visual and dogmatic miracle. They say his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light, merely to prove an external divinity to men. However, what these men witnessed was not a religious spectacle to be worshipped from afar, but a technical demonstration of applied spiritual physics. It was something any trained and conscious human being could accomplish if they had the correct knowledge of the body's energetic anatomy. Orthodox theology purposefully transformed an instruction manual into an exclusive event to ensure you always felt small. What really happened on that mountaintop reveals a closely guarded secret about your own biology that major institutions fear you will discover. Jesus wasn't there to display unattainable power, but to test a light technology that allows ordinary people to transcend the laws of physical density. Those 3 disciples were chosen as eyewitnesses to a process involving the atomic acceleration of cells through a specific mental command. The light didn't come from outside, but from within each atom of Jesus's body, in a chain reaction of biophotons. If humanity knew that this ability is inherent in its DNA, the control exerted by organized religions would crumble in a few days. They needed to label it a unique miracle so that no one else would try to replicate the process in their own home. But the truth is that the instruction manual for this light was never erased, only buried under layers of dogma. Imagine for a moment that you received a complex machine, but whoever gave you the equipment hid the power button and said that only a chosen one can use it. That is exactly what the power structures did with the technique of transfiguration, creating a psychological barrier of unworthiness across the entire population. They knew that a human being shining in their own light cannot be enslaved by debts, fears, cities or senseless external orders. The event on Mount Tabor was a practical lesson in energetic sovereignty that was witnessed by Peter, James, and John in a state of total shock. They didn't see a god, They saw what man becomes when he accesses the direct source of his creation. The light was so intense that the clothes seemed to change color, but it was only the effect of the vibrational frequency altering the perception of matter. This light technology has a name and an origin far older than any religion we know. This origin dates back to civilizations that official history insists on calling myths, but which left technological traces on every continent of our planet. We are talking about a science that doesn't use wires or gears, but rather sound, geometry, and focused intention to alter reality. What Jesus practiced on the mountain was the culmination of training that began much earlier in mystery schools that preserved the sacred fire. These schools knew that the physical body is merely the shell of a galactic battery waiting to be activated by a higher voltage. When Jesus climbed the mountain, he didn't pray in the common sense. He went to execute a dimensional alignment protocol. This protocol allows individual consciousness to merge with the central intelligence of the universe, resulting in an immediate increase in biological radiance. But why has this information been so contested and distorted by those who claim to follow the Master? The answer is simple and terrifying: total control over the most powerful energy source in the world, which is human attention and consciousness. If you believe that light belongs only to a single man who lived 2,000 years ago, you will continue to surrender your energy to intermediaries. Institutions have created a system of spiritual begging where you need to ask permission to access something that is already pulsing in your veins right now. They have transformed technique into mystery and knowledge into sin so that the key to the prison always remains in their hands. What happened on Mount Tabor was a data leak from a forbidden system, a flaw in the matrix that needed to be corrected quickly. However, traces of this light technique were recorded elsewhere, in even more detail and operational form for those who know how to read. These records reveal an orchestrated lie that has shaped our entire modern society. The great lie of the institutions was not to say that the event didn't happen, but rather to conceal the exact mechanism that allowed that light to manifest. They removed the breathing instructions, the eye focus, and the sound frequency that Jesus used to open the inner portal. By doing so, they ensured that you would look at the story with awe, but without ever having the audacity to attempt the same. But what they didn't expect is that modern science itself would begin to validate what the ancients called the light body. Quantum physics and molecular biology are now knocking on the door of Mount Tabor, discovering that our cells communicate through coherent light. If you understand how this light is generated, you discover the path to dismantling all the illusion of limitation that surrounds you. However, there is a technical reason why the institutions fought so hard to hide this specific practice of divine synchronization. Light technology and the lies of institutions. The official narrative purposefully omits that the light emanating from Mount Tabor was not a capricious supernatural phenomenon or a random gift from heaven. What occurred there was the result of a specific scientific practice designed to shift consciousness from the density of matter to the frequency of the monad. This technique has deep roots in ancient Atlantis and was preserved with extreme rigor by Thoth, the scribe of the gods and the great architect of consciousness. Thoth knew that the human being possesses an invisible geometric structure that, when activated, transforms the body into a conductor of pure light. If you want a practical guide to activating this technology in your routine, I've left a link in the first pinned comment. It contains a roadmap that I follow to achieve this autonomy, straight to the point and without any mysteries. When the organism reaches a state of absolute coherence between thought, feeling, and action, it responds with a massive emission of biophotons. This is a real physical radiance, perfectly measurable by sensitive instruments, but it has been labeled a miracle to avoid serious investigation. The lie of the institutions begins exactly where the science of the soul ends. Rudolf Steiner, one of the greatest researchers of the occult, claimed that the disciples present represented the technical control over the elements that compose our physical reality. Peter, James, and John were not there merely out of friendship, but because they symbolized the anchoring of the earth, air, and water necessary for alchemy. While they maintained the base, the technique performed by Jesus activated the governance of the forces of inner fire, the transformative element that consumes the illusion of matter. By hiding the precise instructions of this ritual, the control system ensured that humanity remained in a position of perpetual need. They want you to believe that you need a priest, a pastor, or a guru to get close to that higher frequency. What Jesus actually showed was a short path of only 5 minutes that threatens to dismantle every layer of the illusion of scarcity that governs you. This institutionalized lie has created a civilization based on weakness, where people seek power in objects, titles, and the approval of others while ignoring their inner sun. Thoth's light technology teaches that the human body is a cosmic energy converter that has been purposefully configured to operate at low voltage. Think of it as a state-of-the-art computer that is only being used for basic tasks because you don't know the complete operating system. Institutions don't want you to install the monad software because it would make you independent of any social or religious control structure. A man who shines does not follow herds and is not swayed by narratives of fear or constant war. Therefore, the synchronization technique was treated as a forbidden protocol, something that only high-ranking initiates could access behind the scenes of power. The truth is that Jesus was trying to democratize this technical knowledge, taking it out of closed temples and giving it to those who had eyes to see. He knew that humanity's time as a slave to shadows was coming to an end and that the light needed to be revealed as a practical tool. The lie of the institutions was to portray Jesus as an external savior instead of a technical instructor who came to show the potential of every human being. When you understand that the light of Tabor is a biological capacity, you begin to question every dogma you have been taught since childhood. You realize that true spirituality has nothing to do with guilt or sin, but rather with the vibrational frequency and conductivity of your soul. The fear that you will discover this is what keeps the fires of mental inquisition burning to this day through the media. What Jesus truly demonstrated on that mountain was that matter is merely frozen light, and that consciousness can melt that ice to mold reality at will. This technology of Thoth utilizes the heart as an oscillator that synchronizes all the atoms of the body with the pulsation of the galactic center. If you can sustain this frequency for just a few minutes, the structure of your personal reality begins to change drastically and permanently. Institutions know that this practice is the end of the line for the dominion they exert over the collective mind of humanity. That is why they have transformed the technique into repetitive and empty prayers that never reach the voltage necessary for real transfiguration. They gave you the toy, but removed the batteries so you would never see the machine truly working in your daily life. But to learn how to use this technology and activate your own radiance, you first need to understand something much darker that happens behind the scenes. It's not just humans who are interested in keeping you in the dark. There are invisible architects who monitor every glimmer of consciousness that arises on the planet. These beings have created an energy drain system that operates 24 hours a day, sucking every drop of vitality you generate through your emotions. Before accessing the monad and the light of Thoth, you must identify who these guardians are who patrol the gates of your mind to prevent your awakening. They have built a prison without bars, made of distractions and forgetfulness, where you are both the prisoner and the jailer of yourself. You need to know exactly how this drain mechanism works before your energy is stolen again in the next cycle of despair. To navigate the Thoth protocol safely, it is imperative to identify the forces that directly benefit from your ignorance and constant weariness. Various ancient traditions, especially the Gnostics, called these invisible administrators of reality archons, the rulers of the shadows. They should not be imagined as demons from science fiction films, but rather as architects of a sophisticated control system that feeds on energy. This energy is generated by you every time you feel fear, doubt, anger, or a profound sense of being separated from everything and everyone. The archons operate what we call the false matrix, a synthetic copy of reality designed to trap souls in endless cycles of external seeking and suffering. They built this prison without physical walls, using only your own mind as the most effective containment tool that has ever existed. The strategy of these architects of forgetfulness is to keep you distracted with trivial problems, political squabbles, and material needs that are never fully met. While you chase after survival, your vibrational frequency remains low, exactly at the level where they can harvest your vital energy without resistance. The system doesn't fear sporadic meditations or Sunday prayers because it knows that the intensity of these moments usually fades in the face of stressful routines. What truly represents an existential threat to this control structure is the consistency of a high frequency sustained by a conscious individual. This is precisely why the Thoth ritual is considered forbidden and has been hidden from all conventional history and religious books. It is a method capable of creating a compound effect on your nervous system, making you immune to energy drain. This invisible prison operates through a mechanism of repetition, where the same traumas and fears are projected onto your mental screen every day to ensure your consent. You believe your thoughts are your own, but many of them are merely frequencies injected by the matrix to keep you in a state of alert and anxiety. The archons need you to identify only with your physical body and your personal history full of limitations and past pains. If you discover that you are an eternal spark connected to an inexhaustible source of energy, you stop feeding their system instantly. A human being who regains their energetic sovereignty is like a battery that stops supplying electricity to an oppressive machine. Therefore, each step of the Thoth protocol was designed to cut these invisible wires that connect your soul to the predators of consciousness. The synchronization ritual uses brief periods of time to hack the nervous system and install a new reality configuration that the archons cannot access. When you raise your vibration above the level of fear, you become invisible to the monitoring tools of the false matrix that governs the world. It's like changing the radio station from a frequency full of static to perfectly clear and harmonious music that the system doesn't recognize. Thoth taught that the secret to freedom is not fighting the archons, but simply ceasing to be compatible with them through inner light. Fighting only generates more low-vibration energy for them, while silent, technical awakening leaves them powerless and defenseless. True rebellion is silent, technical, and happens within the energy channels that run through your own spine. However, these architects of forgetfulness possess a very serious structural flaw that they try to hide from you at all costs through mass entertainment. This flaw lies in the fact that their control system is purely mental and depends entirely on your ignorance of how your biological vehicle functions. They cannot touch your divine essence, your monad, because its frequency is too high for any being of shadow to withstand. Their power only exists as long as you believe you are merely flesh and bone and a name registered on a civil identity document. The moment you map the secret anatomy of your being, the authority of the archons dissolves like smoke before the strong wind of truth. You need to stop looking to the sky for help and start looking at the complex map that is your own structure. This secret anatomy of your being is composed of layers of energy that function like the circuits of a spaceship left in safe mode. To activate the Thoth protocol and access the monad, you need to know exactly how many layers exist and how to traverse each one without being blocked. Each level of consciousness has a guardian and an access code that humanity has forgotten due to the constant bombardment of useless information. If you get the sequence wrong or try to skip steps, the rational mind will pull you back into the ego's prison in a matter of seconds. Therefore, before beginning the final dive, you must visualize the map of the densities surrounding your divine spark and understand what each one protects. There is a 7-layered structure that separates you from your divinity, and each one holds a secret that can change your life. The anatomy of the invisible and the 7 layers of your consciousness. You need to understand once and for all that you are not just a biological body randomly wandering the world in search of sustenance. In fact, you are a highly complex technological system composed of 7 vibrational densities that act as veils over your central spark, the monad. Imagine that your consciousness is like an intensely bright light, enveloped by 7 shells of different densities, each with a specific function. From the densest physical density to the most subtle spiritual purity, each layer functions as a security mechanism to protect the integrity of your soul. The problem is that most people live and die trapped only in the first layer, the outermost shell, where control is absolute. In this physical layer, the archons manage to manipulate your senses through pain, pleasure, and the constant anxiety for biological survival. The forbidden protocol of Thoth functions exactly like a master key designed to traverse each of these 7 layers in a rigorous mathematical sequence. If you attempt to access the source directly without preparing these intermediate levels, the resistance of your own rational mind will be so strong that you will be expelled. Understanding these levels as the layers of an onion is what allows awakening to cease being a mystical dream and become a technical adjustment. The first layer is the physical body, the second is the vital energy body, and the following layers deal with emotions, intellect, and pure intuition. Each step you climb on this inner map requires you to leave behind some of the weight of your limited identity and your ego. Upon reaching the seventh layer, you are finally before the door of the monad, the point where time and space cease to exist. This anatomy of the invisible was detailed in ancient Egyptian texts, where each layer received a name and a function within the process of ascending consciousness. The Ka, the Ba, and the Ach were not merely religious terms, but technical descriptions of different voltage states that consciousness can assume. The modern control system has made sure to erase these concepts from schools and universities so that you lose the manual for your own vehicle. If you don't know the gears of your soul, you will never know when one of them is being sabotaged by external thoughts or frequencies of fear. Learning to navigate these 7 densities is like learning to pilot a state-of-the-art aircraft that was sitting idle in the garage of your mind. Each layer has a specific resonance frequency that responds to stimuli of sound, breath, and visual focus that Thoth encoded in his emeralds. The archons exert their dominion primarily in the 3rd and 4th layers, where your emotions and most basic rational thoughts reside. They create emotional storms and logical labyrinths to ensure you never manage to ascend to the 5th layer, which is the portal of higher intuition. When you become trapped in fear of the future or regret of the past, your energy circulates in these lower layers, feeding the matrix. The Thoth protocol teaches how to silence these storms so that the path through the layers becomes clear and unobstructed. It is a process of spiritual decompression, where you become lighter as you approach the central core of your being. Without this technical understanding of your invisible anatomy, any attempt at meditation will only be a superficial relaxation that does not alter your reality. The monad, which lies at the center of everything, is your true identity. The part of you that was never born and can never die, for it is eternal. It is the direct connection to the creator of all that exists, a spark of pure intelligence that possesses all the knowledge of the universe. Accessing the monad means downloading the wisdom files that have been blocked by the programming of the false matrix in which we currently live. Imagine having access to an infinite library where all the questions about your life and the cosmos already have a clear answer.
So the question is no longer whether the cave exists. The question is, are we still inside it? Plato warned us that prisoners would fight to protect their shadows, because shadows feel safer than truth. And centuries later, the cave has not disappeared. It has evolved. Today, the cave is made of screens, headlines, algorithms, and noise. In the Philippines, it shows itself in the way stories are repeated. Truths are simplified, and comfort is chosen over confrontation. Not because people are ignorant, but because survival teaches silence, and tradition teaches obedience. Those who step outside the cave are not celebrated. They are questioned, labeled, sometimes punished. Yet every generation produces a few who feel the sun on their skin. Journalists who refuse to forget, citizens who ask uncomfortable questions, young minds who sense that something about the shadows feels wrong, and when they return to speak, they are told, "Why disturb the peace? Why challenge what we've always known?" But peace built on illusion is fragile, and a nation that confuses loyalty with blindness forgets that true patriotism requires vision. Plato never said the cave was easy to leave. He only said it was necessary, because a society does not collapse when people question authority. It collapses when no one does. The shadows are familiar. The truth is uncomfortable. But the sun is still there, waiting for those brave enough to turn around.